I'm Richard Dodd, and you're listening to the Ecology Academy podcast. This is a show where we get to talk and learn about all things ecological, including interviews with top ecologists, both employers and employees, those working with ecologists, and also aspiring and inspiring career-seeking individuals setting out to make a difference. The show aims to provide you with insights, advice, and inspiration to help you succeed and excel as an effective ecologist and to make a real difference to our natural environment. Today I'm speaking with Joshua Stiles, a botanical specialist currently working with Atkins in Warrington and passionate science communicator with the background in botany and conservation. Now, although Joshua has relevant experience in ornithological, mammalian, reptile and amphibian survey techniques, it's botanical recording that he's renowned for, being one of a few individuals in the country to receive a FISC Level 6 certification through the Botanical Society of Britain and Ireland. Now, after obtaining 2 successive academic achievement awards, an excellent scholarship and a Chancellor's Scholarship during his stay at Edge Hill University, Joshua has also been awarded the Study Prize 2017 for obtaining the highest aggregate mark across the Faculty of Arts and Science at Edge Hill University, the award for which was an associate membership to the Royal Society of Biology. He's also the author of the Edge Hill University Biodiversity Action Plan, founder of the Northwest Rare Plant Initiative, and founder of British Botany Training. Now, Joshua holds English licenses for floating water plantain, field wormwood, and bats. So, Josh, welcome to the Ecology Academy podcast.
Hello, you're right.
Now, I'll tell you what, that last little bit I put in there as an extra bit because, okay, I know about bats, you know, hold a bat license myself. I've heard of floating water plantain, but what the hell is field wormwood?
Oh, wow. It is a very, very special plant. And the reason I'm licensed for field wormwood is because there is a subspecies that is subspecies maritima that only grows on Crosby sand dunes, and there's 5 plants left in the whole of the UK. Wow. So it's a really special plant because it's super rare, and so I'm licensed to bring it into cultivation. It's also a relative of a very special plant that produces a chemical known as artemisinin, which is on the front line of defense against malaria. So,
wow,
yeah, it's a dead special rare plant.
Yeah. So, do you cultivate them yourself then, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm growing it at home with the ultimate aim of reinforcement for the 5 remaining plants left in the wild.
Right. Well, they're fantastic. Absolutely. Well, you know, it's always a pleasure to learn things on this podcast, and that I'm going to take that with me. Absolutely, take that with me. So I'm going to look out a lot more for field wormwood. Yeah, fantastic. Now, before we get started, you don't escape this at all. A few quick fire questions. No right and wrong answers. So armed with very little information and preparation, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So, I mean, they seem innocent, but people struggle sometimes on these ones. Well, the first one, Josh, is habitats, species, or ecosystems.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other.
This is a common theme. This is a very common theme.
Love them all. Yeah. That's my answer.
Right. If you had to choose one though, which one would you think it would be?
All of ecosystems, because it contains all of them.
All right then. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. Now, obviously, great science communicator. So, radio, TV, or podcasts? Not a loaded question.
Oh God, I don't know. I like watching TV, so maybe TV.
Yeah. We'll go with that. That's fine. Right. Hey, this is the first time I've asked this question to anyone. Dogs or cats?
Oh God, neither.
Neither.
No, I don't like dogs or cats.
Any pets at all, or just no pets?
Well, I named oh god, no, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say I'd named one of my plants Timothy. No, I don't have any pets. I'm dire with animals. They all tend to die under my care. It's like some people can't keep plants alive, but I think I'm the opposite.
Got to keep animals alive.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'll write that down as well. Okay, and finally, what superpower would you like to have, and what would you do with it?
Oh my god. I don't even know. I'd like to read minds.
Yeah.
I know. I don't even know.
Yeah. We'll leave that one. We'll leave
Okay,
that one.
yeah.
If you get an answer, when it comes to you at a later stage, we'll go with that one. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
I'll tell you what. Thank you for that. That's the end of it. And before we go into sort of your journey, really, I just wanted to. Where is it now? Yeah, there's this quote on one of your websites. I think it's the British Botany one, and I just wanted to pick it up a little bit. So it says here that after college, I decided to enroll onto the Bachelor of Science Ecology course at Edge Hill University. It has always been very difficult for me to keep still, and by the time that the third year of my undergraduate degree came about, I found myself in a research position, balancing 3 separate jobs and a number of voluntary roles alongside my studying commitments. Wow. So where does that come from? So where's this, I suppose, I don't know if it's restlessness, or is it actually passion for actually doing something, action?
Maybe both. I think I've got ADHD, can't keep still. And at uni, I just remember getting bored really easily. So hence I ended up with a few different commitments, I think. But yeah.
Oh God! Well, yeah. I mean, it just stood out, that did. I think about it. Wow, how, at university as well. I mean,
I've got 3 jobs now.
Wow. Well,
yeah, and a uni degree. But
let's talk about your time before your current role with Atkins as botanical specialist there. So just run through your journey, wherever you'd like to start, really.
Sure. You mean my journey into the position, or
into ecology, into your role as Atkins? Perhaps sure. From take it from your passion, obviously very passionate childhood. So talk about that and sort of how it came about to becoming a consultant ecologist with Atkins.
Yeah, sure. It started when I was about 6 years old, and I remember that I started to grow sort of fruit and veg in my garden. I used to watch like Gardener's World, and I remember when I was really, really young, but Monty Don was on the TV encouraging people to grow wildflowers for wildlife. So a little bit of pestering, and I eventually got my mum to take me to a garden centre and get me some wildflower seeds. And we grew, or rather I grew, my mum hates plants and gardening. I grew sort of a 1 by 1 metre wildflower area. And I just remember coming home from primary school and literally just sitting down, watching it for hours.
Wow.
I just found the connections and interactions between plants and invertebrates. It was so weird and fascinating how different plants were associated with different moths, butterflies. There was huge arrays of solitary bees and beetles, and so I did the rational thing, and I destroyed my entire vegetable garden and replaced it all with wildflowers. And that's how it started. After that, I continued my interest in plants as a volunteer for the Wildlife Trust, through into college, through my degree, was volunteering with the likes of Natural England, WWT, Wildlife Trusts, and then eventually I got my job as a junior ecologist with a fantastic small consultancy. They're absolutely grand, Tyra Ecological Consultants.
Yeah.
And I began there in 2017. Um,
Can I just go back slightly, John?
sure, go on.
Yeah. So going to that we transition from like college to university. So how did you find that in terms of, you know, were you did you move away for that? Or how did that come about? So how did you find the sort of going to university part of it?
I found it all right, actually. I came through clearing. It was almost a last minute decision, really. And yeah, I just remember through my volunteering, I volunteered with a really great lady, Rachel at Cheshire Wildlife Trust. And I just remember talking to her about getting a job in the environment sector. And one thing that her and other people reiterated is that a degree is something that is super useful. And so it was after that sort of conversation and conversations with other people that I decided to go to university, where I literally called up the head of department and I got through clearing in a week or so. Yeah.
Was it a sort of last minute decision then? So I mean, why did you choose that degree in particular? Was it something that, you know, that's was it Rachel you said? That's, yeah.
No, it wasn't recommended. I just really liked the look of it. And actually it turned out to be a really good decision, because the ecology degree at Edge Hill has a really strong focus, not just on plants as well as animals, but also on UK ecology. And it has a huge emphasis on sort of giving pupils experience in the field that's actually relevant to most sort of environment jobs that you actually get here in the UK. I know a lot of other ecology degrees might put an emphasis on, I don't know, the ecology of savannas in Africa. But yeah, I really like the look of it, and it was a very good decision in the end.
Excellent. All right. Sorry. So I broke your stride then. So now you're with the wonderful, fantastic Tyra, because sorry, I can't really pronounce it really.
It's Tyra Ecological Consultants.
Thank you. Yeah. So they gave you a job, and what was that doing?
So it started as a junior ecologist, just helping with things like preliminary ecological appraisals, bat roost assessments, bat surveys, all kinds of other things. Over the years, experience built up, and I was eventually applying for bat licenses, mitigation licenses, doing ECIAs, doing all kinds of other things. I got to the point where I was a senior ecologist at the company. And to be honest, I moved just because I wanted a bit more botanical work. I wanted a bit more experience that I think is quite hard to get in small consultancies, being honest. Which is why I moved to Mott MacDonald in February of this year. And a few months in, and I got a call from Aitkins asking if I wanted to be their botanical specialist. Got through some interviews, and that's what I'm doing now. Hello.
That's your that was the dream job. You know, so a job you couldn't refuse, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so in terms of now, once you were at the Northwest Rare Plant Initiative, okay, was that something when did you set that up?
So that was pretty much as soon as I graduated from my undergrad degree. I was really fortunate when I graduated, because I was nominated and I was successful for a Chancellor's Scholarship. So well and good. But the main and most important thing is I got $2,000 from it. Felt like a millionaire.
That's right. You get accolades, but money does come.
That's what it's all about. And it took me about a week to decide what to spend the money on. And I just decided I was fed up of seeing incredibly rare and threatened species in the region go extinct. One thing that I always kept up to date with as a child growing up into my teens, I grew up in Cheshire, And I kept up to date with the Cheshire Rare Plant Register. And one thing that was just so frustrating every single year is that at least one plant species had gone extinct. And that trend isn't too dissimilar to every other English county. On average, we're losing one plant species per county at least every 2 years. So fed up of seeing things go extinct. And so what the Northwest Rare Plants Initiative, what I was thinking with that was to target species that are on the very cusp of extinction or declining very quickly, bring those species into cultivation and look to see whether there were suitable candidate receptor sites for reintroduction. I've also looked at things like reinforcement, so bulking up populations that are small and very, very vulnerable. And that's what the Northwest Rare Plants Initiative is.
I say, just reading your website, it says a reintroduction program for 43 vascular plant species. Yeah. So I mean, those I'm not going to actually name them all, although I imagine you probably could. But so which ones did you start focusing upon there?
There's a few. Over time, there's been a real focus on peatland species. And to start with, one of my initial focuses was of a very, very special plant that is my absolute favourite now. It's called Lesser Bladderwort. And God bless it, it looks like a bit of pond sludge, but actually it's very, very interesting. It's one of the fastest plants on the planet, able to capture animals at a pace of 1/10,000th of a second. And also, a single strand can consume tens of thousands of animals every year. Much better than any bat or newt or lion or tiger, I think. But anyway, unfortunately, as voracious as Lesser Bladderwort is, it hasn't been quick enough to respond to changes in its preferred habitat, peatlands. And across across the majority of northwest England, sort of between Cheshire and Lancashire, there was a single site before 2018 left, and it was a puddle in Delamere Forest, surrounded by a sea of conifer plantation. It's inevitable that it's going to go extinct some point soon, I think. But also, more encouragingly, across the Greater Manchester Mosses, where Lesser Bladderwort used to be very, very widespread, it died out in the 1800s because of peatland destruction and damaging activities like, peat cutting and all kinds of other things. So it used to grow on the Greater Manchester Mosses, and it went extinct because of us. But the encouraging news is that loads of conservation effort has been poured into the Manchester Mosses over the past few decades, since the 1980s. And these fragments of peat bog that were left are beginning to be re-wetted, restored, and there are sphagnums and all kinds of other great plants that have made a recovery there. And so the encouraging news is that suitable habitat existed across parts of Lesser Bladderwort's former range. And so what I did was I liaised with Wildlife Trusts and Natural England to sample a small number of plants from this puddle and bring this gorgeous piece of pond ooze into cultivation. I did a suitability assessment for some of the Manchester Mosses, liaised again with Natural England and the Wildlife Trust, and eventually got consent for a reintroduction. Anyway, I'm giving you my long story.
Great, absolutely great.
Later in 2018, I was able to reintroduce 60-ish plants to bog pools that have been restored across Manchester. And that they were all doing well and good up until sort of October time, where they died back for winter. came round to monitoring the next year, and from 60, we did a population estimate, and it was over 24,000 plants. And then in 2020, the population estimate was over 200,000 plants.
Wow.
And there was a significant increase in its distribution across the Manchester mosses. And this year, 2021, we did a population estimate, which was very, very taxing and difficult. And that's come out as 2.3-ish million plants. I think I need to stop monitoring it now. It's it's going to be
probably there now.
Reintroduction of lesser bladderwort, very successful. And more importantly, it's secured this species' future across a big portion of its former range, where elsewhere in England, here in England, it's not just northwest England where we've lost loads of lesser bladderwort. Lesser bladderwort's been lost through most of its English historical range. And so elsewhere in England, this plant is at severe risk. There we go. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent.
Absolutely fascinating. I mean, I just love the name. This pond ooze. Reclaiming. I could just see you reclaiming these puddles in Delamere Forest. It's absolutely fantastic. So, in terms of how easy or not so easy is it to actually engage with like the likes of Natural England and other landowners, and to actually start the conversations about reintroduction and then the implementation. So I mean, has it been an easy, smooth journey? Everyone's on board, or have been a few complications along the way?
Nothing's easy. I mean, that story makes it sound a bit simple, I think, but there are loads of when it comes to reintroductions or translocations of species, there are loads of best practice guidelines available, namely the IUCN guidelines when it comes to reintroductions. More recently, DEFRA produced some guidelines, best practice guidelines on reintroductions. And so there are loads of things to consider when it comes to the reintroduction process. Are you sampling for genetic diversity? Have you got in place appropriate biosecurity protocols? All of these things that you need to consider and also relay to the likes of Natural England. That hasn't always been very easy, no. Also, for some reason, plant reintroductions, they're not as commonplace as animal reintroductions. Well done, a sea eagle has been reintroduced, and a beaver and whatever else. But when it comes to plants, there just aren't really very many. And I think this absence of plant reintroductions, which it is an incredibly important conservation tool, I think. But I think as a consequence, a lot of people, particularly botanists, might critique plant reintroductions as a form of gardening. When, in my view, they're absolutely not. But yeah. So that's been a critique anyway.
No, I can sort of see it. So in terms of, I suppose also the press may get a whole. I mean, reintroduction of like white-tailed sea eagle, beaver and so forth. I can see that from a newsworthy story, it seems a little bit better than lesser bladderwort. That for instance. So how do you make? I hate to say this. I mean, you're probably gonna shoot this down. How do you make plants more sexy?
They don't need to be made more.
I know. Yeah.
I think plants are much better than most.
Yeah, you can keep them for an instant.
But the reason I say that is, I mean, visually, okay, you've got lesser bladderwort that might look like a bit of pond ooze. And then if you see a hare bounding across the field, the interest is immediately there. It's cute and fluffy and it moves. But if you consider something like lesser bladderwort, there are so many fascinating aspects about it. And of course, when it comes to the importance of plants, they're the fundamental basis of our terrestrial ecosystems. And I mean, I just find plants, I love animals as well, but I found plants that extra bit fascinating. I mean, things, just keeping it on the line of peat bogs, things like sphagnum look completely inconspicuous, but they are the botanical beavers. They are potentially the single most important group of plants on the planet for carbon sequestration. They pump out hydrogen ions and make their environments as acidic as pickled onions. They can retain up to 20 times their own weight in water. And of course, they can create landscapes on a massive scale. An inconspicuous group of mosses. Much better than a rubbish old beaver, eh?
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Yeah, what have the beavers ever done for us, eh? Oh, this is amazing. So, okay, I mean, I realise we got a little bit of a time left for you. So, okay. I know you've got something else to get on to after this. Always in very high demand. So, can we just move to now, I suppose, your role in Atkins as botanical specialist? So what sort of, your day-to-day, I mean, if there is a day-to-day sort of, role really there, and what sort of support do you provide to Atkins?
Sure. Well, I mean, one key thing that I'm involved in at the moment is, well, actually, I'm not sure if I'm meant to say.
Best not. This comes out ages away. It's probably going to be completed by the time this comes out. No, I'm not trying to lure you in there to actually.
But essentially, as part of my role, so I develop training for people, which is a key aspect of my role. And about half my time is dedicated to training. And then the other half, I'm involved in specialist botanical work as part of projects. And that's the top and tail of it, really.
There we go. That's fine. You don't mention the project at all. Well,
oh no, I wasn't going to mention a project. No.
The training side there, because I mean, you're obviously extremely passionate about that. You've set up, the Northwest Rare Plant Initiative, and also you got your British Botany. Is that the yeah, set that up as well. So educating people more about it's not just vascular plants, is it? It's a whole range.
No, it's not. Actually, I need to sort my Northwest Rare Plants Initiative website out, because although originally it was just vascular plants, there are a couple of mosses, bryophytes, that were included. Things like golden bog moss, a sphagnum species, and also a very rare moss, waved fork moss, which is one of the rarest plants in the country. So yeah, I love vascular plants, non-vascular plants, paraphytes. I love plant STDs,
right?
Diseases that infect the sexual and reproductive organs of plants. I find them really weird and interesting, not because I'm a pervert, but because plant STDs, smut fungi, are really, really interesting. And actually,
smut fungi. What do you say?
Smut fungi. Yeah. Yeah. So you get a group of fungi that often they can infect the reproductive organs of plants, especially smuts in the genus Microbacterium. And the reason I find these smuts interesting is because they're so understudied, but actually they have significant impacts on a species' ability to reproduce. And so they could have a vital role to play in population dynamics and loads of other interesting things. So, yeah.
Wow.
There we go.
I think I could tell you what your superpower is. That's it. Yeah.
What?
I think it is going to be if you can turn every person on the planet into a botanist. I think that.
Well, yeah, mind control. Up there.
yeah. So, I mean, it's why do you think? I mean, again, why aren't there more botanists in not just the UK, but globally? Yeah.
I think it's multifactorial, and everything always starts with our fundamental education. And in education, one big thing that's missing is teaching people about natural history. Also, when it comes to the environment sector here in Britain, I think people tend to have a focus on fauna because typically in ecology, especially consultancy, it has got a focus on fauna, things like bats and newts, protected species, whereas habitats have historically taken a back seat, although that now is changing a little bit with things like UK Hab and BNG coming up. So hopefully people will begin to be more interested by plants. They're an amazing group of organisms. And now that they have taken the fore in consultancy especially, hopefully they will take a bit more of a front seat.
I think you're absolutely right. I think, as you mentioned about biodiversity again, and I think the need for increasing consultants or anyone's ecologists sort of botanical skills level is going to be I think crucial, really, because I think there's a lot of education needed out there, I think, and more botanists required. So I think it's going to. I think the tides are turning. It's going to be a shift towards a more of a botanical-led, hopefully, training courses, but also at universities. I think that's this maybe also a sticking point as well, sort of a bottleneck in that a large amount of these courses, I believe, seem to be focused upon, as I say, the fauna rather than flora, really. So do you get involved at all with any of the universities in your local area at all, with training at all?
Sometimes, yeah. So I've been involved at Edge Hill, my old university, gave a few talks, I've marked a few assignments. Going to be providing a FISC for Edge Hill University students next year. Given a couple of talks to John Moores as well. So sometimes is the answer.
Sometimes.
But yeah.
And what's your main focus at the moment then, Josh? So I mean, if you could spend more time doing, it probably isn't just one of these things, it's probably more than one of these things there. So what areas are you sort of edging towards at the moment, alongside your career with Atkins?
Lots. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. See what crops up, is it?
Yeah. I have no idea. Loads of things is the answer.
Loads of things. Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, your career into ecology then. So, I mean, it seems like to be, I suppose, a great ecologist, and certainly a botanist. Observational skills. What sort of other skills do you think are actually needed for him to become interested within, in plants, if I may, in inverted commas?
What?
Yeah.
Don't know.
I think it's a curiosity.
I think
a very curious person. As in, you want.
I think curiosity. Yeah, I think curiosity is the key feature. I mean, it doesn't take very long looking at plants in depth to become interested and fascinated with them. I personally think that there are so many amazing features about each and every species that is just really, really interesting to me. Whether it's the association with other species or the special characteristics that one plant has, or whatever else. So yeah, curiosity is a good one.
Well, I tell you what, I say I've learned a lot in just this short space of time. So I mean, the fact that lesser bladderwort is one of the fastest, it is the fastest plant.
One of
the fastest plant. Yeah, I mean,
very nearly.
Yeah, I mean, who knew? Who knew? I mean, we don't know about sort of, carnivorous, some carnivorous plants, but that's incredible. So, I mean, there's a lot to be discovered as well. I mean, in terms, I mean, what are your plans for this coming winter? Is it more reintroductions?
Not so much reintroductions, um, which will be next sort of year. My plans for winter include a few things, and one thing I'm really keen to develop on are my bryophyte identification skills. And people often turn their nose up at mosses and liverworts, but actually, they are really, really interesting groups of plants. Did you know they reproduce like us using sperms and eggs, for example, which I find really weird. Really interesting. But also, it's really useful for me as a consultant ecologist to know about mosses at this time of year, especially because a lot of plants might not be too obvious, whereas the mosses look their best. And mosses, just like vascular plants, can play really important roles as indicator species. So that's one thing I want to do this winter. Improve on my bryophyte identification skills.
Wow, fantastic! And I'm also the fact that you're sort of cultivating plants. Is it actually in your own house, or I mean, where have you got a special room, special rooms? The greenhouses. What is it? Where are these actually plants located?
It's a very packed garden.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think at the last count, there's over 300 setups now, full of stuff. So yeah.
You're not planning on moving at the moment, then?
No, it's a challenge last
Nightmare.
time. But, yeah.
Well, thank you very so much, Josh. So, in terms of, I mean, we sort of coming towards the end of the session now. But in terms of career advice, so if you look back upon, I mean, either your 18, 19-year-old self, or what sort of career advice would you give either to you, or what's also the best career advice that's been given to you as well? So, what would you advise there? What would you pass on?
For people who want to work in the environment sector, the critical thing for me that helped me get my first job was volunteering. So although I did volunteer throughout my teens on a sort of sporadic basis, it's something that I put real emphasis on when I was at university, especially. And the reason for that was actually someone gave me some advice at the British Ecological Society on a little summer school thing I went on. And yeah, it was the best piece of advice I was given. Keeping up my volunteering not only gave me loads and loads of experience and critical skills, but that was the one thing that really helped me secure my first job. And I think without volunteering, it might be a bit more difficult perhaps to get your foot into the environmental sector.
Great. Great advice, thank you. And it seems also, I mean, imagine a lot of your work is also, I mean, you're self-taught, is that right? Yeah. And so I imagine it's a lot of it self. So you got to have that drive, that passion for it yourself, I imagine. But also, do you have like, I say role models, mentors that you sort of you look up to, or actually can are close to, that you can actually contact?
Yeah, there's one really great chap that helped me a lot through university and still does. He's a good friend called Dr. Phil Smith. And he's often referred to as the Oracle of the Sefton Coast. And I used to go out with Phil sort of once a week when I was at university. He was he's an absolutely great guy and an amazing botanist. A real role model, and I learned a lot from him as well.
Great. Well, I'm so thankful for your time. It's been education. It's been an absolute education talking to you. And I'm afraid there's lots of things we've missed out on there. I'm sure we can invite you back for a second appearance on the Ecology Academy. But for now, Joshua Stiles, thank you for joining me on the Ecology Academy podcast.
Thanks, Richard.
If you enjoy our show and want to help, then please click on the subscribe button and rate us on your favourite podcast player, as that's how you can inspire ecologists in the making, help retain great talent, and provide insights of our industry to a much wider audience of why ecology really does matter. Thank you. And remember, learning is a lifelong endeavour, so stay curious, be adventurous, and build bridges for others to cross.